Welcome to the Pride Perspectives radio show. My name is Rob Darrow. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and glad you're here with us tonight. Our show is about queer influence and the civil rights movement across Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. Our Pride Perspectives radio show is here on KSQD every other Sunday from 5 to 6. You'll find all our recordings and updates on the Santa Cruz Pride website, santacruzpride.org. Again, I'm Rob Darrow. My co-host Cece is off tonight, so you've got me and our special guests. Our show is guided by the following beliefs. We believe that Santa Cruz County is thriving partly because of the contributions of LGBTQ plus people, and LGBTQ plus people in Santa Cruz County are thriving because of the broader Santa Cruz County. We believe in the words of Jewish poet Emma Lazarus that none of us are free until all of us are free. On this show, you will hear us talk and refer to queer history and LGBTQ plus history. For us, these terms are interchangeable and refer to people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, anywhere on the gender identity spectrum and who they are attracted to. All are welcome to be part of this radio show. So welcome to the new year, 2026. We've now concluded the first year of our radio show. And we partly started the radio show because last year was the 50th anniversary of Santa Cruz Pride. The 50th anniversary celebration was a celebration of the rich LGBTQ plus history across Santa Cruz County that has developed since the 1970s when the first inklings of queer life became more visible. We continue to celebrate the inclusive and welcoming counties we live here in Santa Cruz and Monterey counties and celebrate our combined rich history. As we look back on 2025, while we do celebrate the many accomplishments of the queer community in Santa Cruz County and Monterey County and beyond, we also mourn the loss of life among our queer community. Among our transgender community, there were 49 recorded transgender people who lost their lives to violence or death by suicide in 2025, with a majority of those people being African American trans women, according to the Advocates for Trans Equality, a national organization that advocates for legal and political rights of transgender people in America. Sadly, that trend of one trans person being killed almost each week has been an ongoing trend for several years across the United States, and a trend that we need to change for the future. In addition, 2025 has been a year of unprecedented attacks of our queer community by members of the federal government. The current presidential administration is doing their best to erase LGBTQ plus people from U.S. history. Fortunately, we are not going back. Our resolve is even stronger, and we will continue to stand up for our rights guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution and through our state and federal laws. This past week, we mourned the loss of life of Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother who was killed at the hands of ICE officials in Minneapolis. Renee's wife, Becca Good, shared these thoughts after her wife's death, and I want to read the entire statement that she wrote. She said, "First, I want to extend my gratitude to all the people who have reached out from across the country and around the world to support our family. This kindness of strangers is the most fitting tribute because if you ever encountered my wife, Renee Nicole Macklin Good, you know that above all else she was kind. In fact, kindness radiated out of her. Renee sparkled. She literally sparkled. I mean, she didn't wear glitter, but I swear she had sparkles coming out of her pores all the time. You might think it was just my love talking, but her family said the same thing. Renee was made of sunshine. Renee lived in an overarching belief. There is kindness in the world, and we need to do everything we can to find it where it resides and nurture it where it needs to grow. Renee was a Christian who knew that all religions teach the same essential truth. We are here to love each other, care for each other, and keep each other safe and whole. Like people have done across place and time, we moved to make a better life for ourselves. We chose Minnesota to make our home. Our whole extended road trip here, we held hands in the car while our son drew all over the windows to pass the time in the miles. What we found when we got here was a vibrant and welcoming community. We made friends and spread joy, and while any place we were together was home, there was a strong shared sense here in Minneapolis that we were looking out for each other. Here, I had finally found peace and safe harbor. That has been taken from me forever. We were raising our son to believe that no matter where you come from or what you look like, all of us deserve compassion and kindness. Renee lived this belief every day. She is pure joy. She is pure joy. She is pure sunshine. And she is pure love. On Wednesday, January 7th, we stopped to support our neighbors. We had whistles. They had guns. Renee leaves behind 3 extraordinary children. The youngest is just 6 years and already lost his father. I am now left to raise our son and to continue teaching him, as Renee believed, that there are people building a better world for him, that the people who did this had fear and anger in their hearts, and we need to show them a better way. We thank you for the privacy you are granting our family as we grieve. We thank you for ensuring that Renee's legacy is one of kindness and love. We honor her memory by living her values, rejecting hate and choosing compassion, turning away from fear and pursuing peace, refusing division and knowing we must come together to build a world where we all come home safe to the people we love. Renee Good graduated from Old Dominion University in Virginia in 2020, and that's where President Brian Hemphill commented about Renee's death. He said, "May Renee's life be a reminder of what unites us, freedom, love, and peace. My hope is for compassion, healing, and reflection at a time that is becoming one of the darkest and most uncertain periods in our nation's history." People across Santa Cruz and Monterey counties, particularly in Watsonville and Salinas, held vigils in honor of Renee and her family. We encourage all of you to stay close to the ones you love, and let's continue to be supportive to our community. Despite these challenges, all our communities, including our queer community, continue to stand up and demand equal justice for all as guaranteed to all of us under the U.S. Constitution. Despite our queer civil rights being under attack, there have been queer people who have stood up and have made an important difference in history. Later on this show, we will talk with 2 people who have made history in many ways in our Monterey and Santa Cruz communities. But before you meet them, I wanted to talk about one queer person in history that is not often talked about, particularly as we look to Martin Luther King Day, a week from tomorrow, January 19th, which we celebrate in the United States the 3rd Monday of every January in honor and legacy of Martin Luther King. We celebrate Martin Luther King because of how he stood up for civil rights and social justice issues. Most people are taught about Martin Luther King in their schools, and in some classes, students have learned the importance of the "I Have a Dream" speech that took place in Washington, D.C. at the Lincoln Memorial on August 28, 1963. There were 250,000 people that showed up at the National Mall on that day in 1963 who heard that speech and were there. Martin Luther King had an incredible team of people who organized this event, and one of those people was Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin was an out gay man in the 1950s and 1960s at a time when few people were public about being gay or lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. He is the one who helped organize that event and all the logistics that brought people from across the United States to the event and helped create the space to make that "I Have a Dream" speech possible. Bayard Rustin began his civil rights advocacy in the 1940s and lived out his later years in New York with his partner Walter Nagel until his death in 1987. He lived his life as a pacifist and shared the importance of nonviolent resistance with others. Check out the award-winning film Rustin that you can find on many streaming services to learn more about him. Remember that Bayard Rustin, an out gay man, was the one who helped organize many of the events that allowed Martin Luther King to give voice and support for civil rights and social justice issues in the United States. Civil rights is our common theme today, and we are delighted to welcome 2 civil rights icons who live in our midst in both Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. After the break, you'll meet Tyller Williamson, who is the mayor of Monterey, and later in the show you will meet Elaine Johnson, who is the executive director of housing in Santa Cruz County and president of the local chapter of the NAACP in Santa Cruz County. During the break, you'll get a chance to hear an interview with Bayard Rustin that took place in 1979. He was talking about the Civil Rights Act in 1964. So listen to this recording of Bayard Rustin, and then we'll hear from Tyller Williamson after the break.
It was limited to three things only: the right to vote, the right to use public accommodations, and the right to send your child to school of your choice. It had nothing to do with the North, fundamentally. It had only to do with the South, and it did not address itself in any way to the economic and social problems of black people. That is the reason it's such a different movement than we have today.
So why it succeeded? Because
it succeeded because its objectives were very concrete and exceedingly limited. But when you get into the question of full employment, hospital care, the nature of work, medical care, then you are no longer talking about civil rights.
Even so, shouldn't it have enormous lessons for us because it was successful?
No, I don't think any of the lessons of that period are applicable to now.
You just destroyed my show.
Well, I don't think so. Well, I think there are some lessons if we start where I start. And the first lesson is don't try to repeat what you've done because we're in a different period. That's the first lesson. Second lesson is that protest is no substitute for the ballot box, which we have now. When we didn't have the ballot box, protest was the logical way. Once you have the ballot box, protest is useless. And the fact is you cannot get blacks into the ballot box. A third of the blacks who can vote go to vote. That's our problem.
Isn't it critically important for people to understand, though, that the movement was not just leaders, but it was individuals?
Oh, yes. It was that's the reason we are not succeeding now. We got hundreds of thousands of people voting with their feet. Now we cannot get them to use their feet to go to the ballot box. And therefore there is not the involvement of hundreds of thousands of people today.
That was Bayard Rustin talking about the importance of the ballot box in 1979. You're listening to the Pride Perspectives radio show on KSQD 90.7 FM, 89.7 FM, and 89.5 FM, and KSQD 89.7 Prunedale, serving the counties of Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. This is Rob Darrow from the Pride Perspectives radio show, and I'm excited to welcome Tyller Williamson. Tyler, are you there?
Hi, Rob. Yes, I am here. How are you?
Great. So great to talk to you. It's been too long.
I know, but it's good to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
I'm glad. Yeah, it's great to have you here, and our listening audience, I'm sure, will be delighted to learn more about you. Maybe I'll just start with having you introduce yourself a little bit and how you ended up in Monterey.
Yeah, so hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. My name is Tyller Williamson, the mayor of Monterey. There's so much to the story, but I will do a quick highlight and say I first got involved in politics because of the Obama campaign. I worked on Obama's campaign in 2012. I was responsible for the campaign out of the San Francisco headquarters. That happened once I already arrived in Monterey, though. I grew up in a military family. My mom served in the Navy for 20 years. So I never lived anywhere for more than 4 years my entire life. And then I ended up coming to Monterey because I was offered a position at the Naval Postgraduate School. And I ended my career there in 2023 in human resources. I've since left, and now I work for the VA. But the Navy is what brought me here, and I'm so thankful because I had never been to Monterey. prior to that. And obviously, we live on one of the most beautiful places on the planet. So I'm honored and privileged to be the mayor, and just really excited to talk maybe a little bit about what we're doing and what this means as it relates to the LGBTQ community, but particularly from the perspective of the upcoming Black History Month and what it means to be Black as well, that intersectionality. So
yeah, perfect. As I do with everybody who comes onto the show, it's always great to hear people talk a little bit about where they grew up. I know that you're an out gay man. I'm curious what your coming out story was like. When you went to school, I know you said you were only in a school maybe for 4 years at a time. Were there times where you were bullied or things like that? So tell us a little bit about growing up and a little bit about your coming out story.
Yeah. It was tough because, as many folks are aware, when you're not able to grow up in one place as a kid in particular, you can't build those long-term relationships with folks. So it already kind of made relationship building really challenging. And you go to the next place and you have to build new relationships all back over again. I think for me, a lot of the identity as a queer gay man had to do with my community and me being Black. When I look at the male figures in the Black community in my family, there was a lot of signals that were sent of what it meant to be a man. And that didn't just come from my family. That comes from, we all experience it from media, from the highway signs that we pass, with billboards. There's all these subliminal messages out in the world that tell us who we should be. But it definitely impacted me within the African American community. But I think people also did, especially as I got older, recognized some mannerisms, and so I was definitely bullied for that growing up.
Oh,
and I think it created an opportunity for me to develop thick skin, and although nobody should have to, that shouldn't be the standard that anybody should have to go through. I think it's prepared me well in some weird way of doing what I'm doing now in politics. I mean, you get it in a different level here. But anyways, I definitely have had those experiences, and I think part of it is just trying to make sure that I help people, especially younger people that are going through this transition in their lives, and how to not allow those folks to control your life events. And make sure that you get help and access to the resources that you need so that you can live a fulfilled life.
Yeah. At what point did you come out, and how did that happen for you in general?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I came out on the Obama campaign. So I was up in San Francisco. The campaign didn't give me the heads up on this, but they put the office smack dab in the middle of the Castro. And so there was these huge ceiling to floor windows with beautiful men walking by all day. And what it was that I had one of my volunteers on the campaign, take me aside and made me feel comfortable with who I was, and introduced me to some of his friends, and just showed me that there was a different way of being loved and receiving love, and being comfortable with who you are. So it happened during the Obama campaign, and I have Obama to thank so much for getting me interested in politics, but also for me to come out, which is, for anybody that's gone through that experience, is always a significant milestone in someone's life.
Yeah.
And so just very, very thankful for that experience.
So was that in your 20s?
Yes, I believe I was 23.
Yeah, in your 20s. Yeah. People come out at all different ages. It's just interesting to hear those pieces.
That's right. That's right.
How was it? So how was it sharing that with your family or your mom?
Yeah. So after the campaign, so when I was up there, I had met my first male partner. And I had to come back and share that with my family. My mom, I talked to her about it on the phone. I called her before I planned the visit down to talk to my dad about it. And so I knew my mom was going to be fine with it. She's my mom.
Yeah.
She's the one. She's
I've met your
wonderful,
mom. You've got a great mom. Yeah.
Thank you. I do think so myself. And I will give a shout out to her because I'm sure she's listening in. So love you, Mom. I gave her a call, and then we drove down together, and I went into my parents' bedroom with them, and I shared it with my father. And I grew up with my father beating us. Like, we would get like pretty severe spankings growing up, and so I thought that this was going to be one of those moments, even though I was an adult now at this point. But it wasn't that. In fact, what his response was, well, I accept you for who you are, as long as you can accept Jesus Christ in your life at some point. And to me, that being the response, I was thankful for. Like, I had no grievances with that at all.
Yeah.
In that moment, I was just happy that it was somewhat peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom did tell me later that my dad had a tough time sleeping that night, just kind of sitting on it himself. But I was thankful for it. There did become a point where there was a head with my father later on, and we've since blown over that, and we're in a good space now. My partner Ivan, my dad accepts, and we have a great relationship. So I'm very thankful for that. But in the moment, it was tough. It was challenging.
Even at your 20s, it was concerning, huh?
Oh yeah. Because I think for many of us, making our parents proud and showing them that we can be successful young individuals and live a long, healthy life. And my dad was worried about that, so that kind of affected me for a while. But I'm glad that we're in a new space now.
Great. I think that part's important for people to know, right? For anybody who's coming out, that it just takes time, but you've got to stand up and be your own self.
That's right. And you have to live your life. And I mean, in my case, at least, I hoped that my father would eventually come around. And I'm thankful that he did, but I wasn't going to allow that to stop me finding my happiness.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think you've done a great job of finding your happiness. We're very happy that you're living in Monterey doing the work you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk first about your day job and what you talked about. You changed one career and you're in a different career. And I know the more public part of you is Monterey Peninsula Pride and being mayor of Monterey. But tell us a little bit about your current job and what that entails.
Yeah, so like I shared, I switched from the Naval Postgraduate School to the Department of Veteran Affairs. So I'm still a federal employee, just switched agencies, and I do the same job that I was doing before I left the Naval Postgraduate School. It's labor and employee relations. It's kind of not the fun side of HR. It's the part of HR where you're dealing with disciplinary actions and performance issues and making sure that you're holding the workforce accountable. And I'm thankful for it. Prior to me getting into HR, I was a steward for our local union at the Naval Postgraduate School.
Oh.
And so being on my side now in HR is kind of seen as the people on the other side of the table. And what's interesting is I'm very pro-labor. I believe in strong unions. But what the advantage was for me now being in HR was to help hold management accountable from that position. And so how I like to share it is, managers oftentimes come to us, usually when things have gotten so bad, like they didn't come to us when the issue started. It's now gotten to a point where usually they want to fire somebody. And so, our job is to make sure that they're following law, rule, regulation, keeping the agency safe. And so, oftentimes when they come to us, all this stuff is built up and they didn't do anything or communicate something to the employee to address that issue from early on. So then it's turning back to the manager and saying, okay, well, maybe we should communicate, back to the employee and let them know what the standards and expectations are. So anyway, that's
you spend a lot of time doing communication stuff.
I talk a lot all day. That's kind of what I do for both of my jobs.
So before we get into what you're doing as mayor of Monterey, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Monterey Peninsula Pride and how you helped get that going. I know there was a group of you, but I'm just curious if you could share a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah. So the Obama campaign happened, and I was eager to stay engaged and involved in the community. I've always been engaged and involved in the community. And I'll just go back here for a quick second just to kind of give some context. My mom, serving in the military, she got my brothers and I involved in the community no matter where we lived. And so I was in Boy Scouts. I became an Eagle Scout. I, would pick up trash on Earth Day. We would feed the homeless during soup kitchens. And I was just involved in a lot of stuff. So it wasn't any different when I moved here, which is why I got involved in the Obama campaign. And I've been involved with a couple other local groups. So I had built a network of relationships in town, and I'm thankful for the community that lives here in Monterey County because there's a quite active volunteerism efforts going on in our region. So super thankful for those people and giving a shout out to our volunteers out there. And so somebody came up to me and was like, we should host a Pride event. And I said, absolutely, let's make it happen.
You just said, yes, let's do it, huh?
But we said we need somebody to lead it. And so I was happy to do that again because, oftentimes it just takes one person and you can reach out to folks, and sometimes those folks know folks. So I just reached out to a few folks. We built a network of volunteers that came together, and we had a little committee that formed and divided and conquered the different tasks associated with doing all the things that required of us to get going. And of course, it's always challenging when you're first starting because you're trying to figure everything out for the first time. It's like, we don't even have a nonprofit status. How do we raise money and make people trust that where their money is going is the appropriate thing? So there was a lot of logistics, but we made it work. And that first year we held it in Seaside.
What year was that? Do you remember?
That was 2017.
2017. Yeah. And it's still going today.
And it's still going today. I'm not on the board anymore.
Right.
And it actually is the thing that makes me the most proud about kicking that organization off is for me to be able to have stepped away and know that there's still folks in the community that are keeping it going strong. And actually it's thriving. They're doing better financially than they were when I was there. And I think we're just seeing the organization continue to grow. And that says a lot. It says a lot about the volunteers, but it also says a lot about the needs within our community. So,
and your leadership, I would add.
I appreciate you for it. It takes a village. So
So okay. So I forget how long you've been mayor of Monterey now, and what are you doing in that role?
Yeah, so I first got elected to the council in 2018, and this was before the city transitioned our council seats to at large. So all council seats except for the mayor now is by district. And so after my first term, I decided to run for mayor. So that was in 2022. I ran for re-election last year, and I'm up for re-election again this year. So,
this year there's another election coming up, huh?
Yeah, it's already here upon us.
Wow.
And so, the mayor's terms are 2 years. The council is 4.
So
I got to sit in a seat a little bit longer prior, I've been mayor now. This is going into my 4th year as mayor, 8th year on council, and a lot of what led to me running was seeing people talk about things that aligned with my values, but when it came time to getting things done, I wasn't seeing it. And so really it's about taking action, creating a vision for what our community wants and needs. And one of the things that really fizzled to the top was our infrastructure. It's not anything super fun and sexy, but our infrastructure is why we're here. Our roads, our sidewalks, our storm drains. And there's been a lot of deferred maintenance in the city of Monterey. And so we've done a lot of work towards setting funding aside and creating reserves so that we can not only take care of things as they come, but we also can start setting up the future generations for success and knowing that the funding is going to be there to maintain all the infrastructure. So that was one of the big things. another big thing that really got me involved in politics is housing. I've been homeless before and have had that experience, but I've also been on the other side of that story too. Growing up in a military family, we never had to worry about housing. So having gone from an environment where housing was never an issue to then ending up on the street was it was just a really interesting experience that I know what's better. I know what I don't want. And I have a level of appreciation for what a lot of residents are still going through today. And I'll just share one quick thing about the housing piece, which is the single greatest reason why the cost of living is so expensive in our region, and particularly in the state of California, is because we fail to keep up with the supply of housing as the demand, as the population has continued to grow. So, people will continue to outbid each other with the housing that's available on the market, and then the poorest people get pushed out into homelessness. So that issue is really huge, and I'm really excited to lead the city in addressing some of those issues to the best that we can and getting the city on the right track and getting some housing constructed.
Wow, that's great. I'm assuming you're going to run for mayor again. And when you first ran for city council, you knew you were the first African-American person to run for that office. I'm curious what that was like at that point. And then if you just...
Being the first is been an interesting experience. One of the things that actually really got me to make the decision in moving forward with running for office was an organization called Victory Institute. A great individual in the community, actually from Santa Cruz County. His name is Glenn Schaller. He was hooked up with the organization, and he got a notification about one of their trainings. He forwarded me that email and encouraged me to sign up. So I did. I went to one of their week-long trainings that they have for candidates to train about how to run a campaign. And so it was great doing it through them because they were able to help us talk through some of those experiences about how to handle your identity and how you present that and make that part of your platform. And I chose not to really make it too much part of my platform.
Right.
I wanted people to see me as just another community member, but it was very much part of my identity. I mean, I was the founder of Monterey Peninsula Pride, and that was part of my credentials and credibility in knowing that I could be a good candidate for a council seat. So I didn't shy away from it at all. But I think it definitely posed its challenges with some of the dynamics that exist within our community over the years. So it's an interesting thing to see, and I'm kind of jumping forward in time here a little bit, but the latest of things, just to kind of give an example, is we added a rainbow crosswalk in downtown, and the amount of hate that came out was unfortunate. But what made it all the more better was to see how many more people came out in support. And it was an emotional moment for me on the council when we were discussing this, because there was a moment where it looked like it actually wasn't going to happen, like we didn't have the votes.
Right.
But in the end, I think it was because there was so much support in our community for the LGBTQ community that we were successful in getting that done. So we're still fighting the fight.
That's great. I think that's a great final example, and I hate to leave it there, but I'm going to have to, because I've got some other guests that we've got on tonight. But I just really thank you for your continued leadership, being who you are, and glad you could join us tonight.
Rob, it's always a pleasure. I can't wait for us to connect more, and I'm wishing everybody a good evening.
Right on, for sure. So you're listening to K-Squid, Pride Perspectives radio show. We serve the counties of Santa Cruz and Monterey. We're going to take a short break. You're going to hear from Peter, Paul, and Mary, who sang Blowing in the Wind in 1963 as part of that Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech event there on the Lincoln Monument. They were introduced by Ozzie Davis. So let you listen to a little bit to Peter, Paul, and Mary, and then we're going to talk with Elaine Johnson, who is involved with housing here in Santa Cruz County.
Relationship.
And now, a group of singers who have come to help express in song what this great meeting is all about. I give you now Peter, Paul, and Mary.
I started to sing, and I had an epiphany. Looking out at this 250,000 people, I truly believed at that moment it was possible that human beings could join together to make a positive social change.
Then all of a sudden, the lyrics are coming out, and how many years will it take before people can be free? And you're thinking, wow, this is it. This is the integration of everything that you sing and you feel strongly, and the moment.
There was a
Perspectives, radio show here on KSQD 90.7 FM, 89.7 FM, and KSQD 89.7 in Prunedale, serving the counties of Santa Cruz and Monterey County. Now I have the great pleasure of welcoming Elaine Johnson. Elaine, are you there?
I am.
Oh, great. It's so great to talk to you. And I'd love just to have you start by introducing yourself and how you ended up in Santa Cruz.
Yes, my name is Elaine Johnson. I am the Executive Director of Housing Santa Cruz County, and I'm also the President of the local NAACP branch here. And, it's funny, how did I end up in Santa Cruz? Well, believe it or not, I actually was dating somebody who lived in Santa Cruz. I had never heard of Santa Cruz before. Yeah, and so I came out to visit one time, and I stayed for a couple of weeks, and then when I went back home, I found out that we were losing our jobs after 20 years, and so I said, okay, I guess that was my sign to move to Santa Cruz.
Wow.
And so I ended up coming out here. It's been a journey, for sure.
And so it sounds like love brought you to Santa Cruz a little bit.
At the time, it was love. I won't say that the love lasted.
Well, that happens to all of us at different times, but well, how fascinating. So you worked for 20 years doing something else and then came to Santa Cruz. Mm-hmm. What were you doing?
I was a production planner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit about where you grew up? And then I always ask people a little bit about their coming out stories because we're dealing with queer history here.
Yes, I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, in a housing project. I say I had the best upbringing in the world, and I say that because growing up in the housing project really showed me what community looked like and the importance and impact of community. You had a family, but growing up where I came from, you had a lot of families. Everybody looked out for you. If your family was struggling, which we struggled a lot, my mother had some struggles in her life, the community picked up the pieces for us. Yeah, and so...
so that's the community you grew up in?
I'm sorry?
I said that's the community you grew up in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I carry that experience with me every single day of my life. And it has directed the things that I do in my life and how I am as a person in any community that I live in.
Yeah, we're fortunate that you moved here because you've done an awful lot for our community for sure.
Yes, I have. I wear a few different hats in the community, and I think that was ingrained in me again from my upbringing and watching the adults who took care of us and mimicking what they did when I got old enough, to help the younger ones and help my community. We had food drives and all that kind of stuff, and so it's in my DNA.
Yeah. Before we talk about your many hats, could you share a little bit about your coming out story, what that was like for you, what it was like to share that with your family, what age it happened, those types of things?
Sure. It wasn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
I realized when I was about 12 or 13 that I liked girls, and it was confusing. But at the age of 15 and a half, almost 16, I had my first girlfriend. And, back then they had the rotary phones.
Right.
and I was talking on the phone with my girlfriend, and my mother was listening on the other end.
Oh.
And so that's how she found out, and she was devastated. And so she went and told my maternal grandmother, her mother, and so my grandmother and my aunt Elaine, who my sister who's 16 months older than me, we were named after my grandmother and my aunt.
Your aunt. Mm-hmm.
And so they came over to the house, and my mother needed them to talk to me. And what I ended up learning that day from my aunt, who was also my godmother, she pulled me aside in the bedroom and she said, I understand that you like Edith.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell your mother I told you. And I said, what is that? She said, I will always be your aunt and your godmother, but I'm not really your aunt. I'm your grandmother's girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
And my first thing was, oh, my God, grandma's a lesbian? Cool. And I tear up because when she shared that with me, I didn't then think I was crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And my grandmother and Aunt Elaine were together for almost 40 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and so they both took their last breath.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah.
I've got shivers just hearing that story. Well, how amazing that is. I could just imagine that moment for you.
It was that moment and then many moments after that because they took me under their wing after that. Now, Mommy didn't know about a lot of it. But, like it could be my first gay dance at 18 and stuff. But they really took me under my wing because, they were very closeted, right? But they had a beautiful group of friends. My grandmother lived in a beautiful high-rise in Manhattan, and they had the doorman the whole night.
Oh, wow.
And they had really beautiful friends where they did cruises and stuff together. But out in the quote-unquote world, they were kind of on the down low.
Ah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But how great to have somebody to guide you on your coming out like that.
Yeah, because it wasn't easy, because my mother, actually, she never really accepted it. And what was confusing for me was because she knew her mother was gay, I didn't understand why she couldn't accept me, but, God bless her.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what a complex thinking it must have been for your mom.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that myself, going, oh, how does a mom navigate, those different angles? But
and not only navigate it, but my mother named me after my grandmother.
Yeah, right. So
like,
she almost was asking for it.
Right. So it was hard in a lot of ways because Mommy didn't accept it, and any opportunity she got to shout that to the rooftop in the public, that made it harder for me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. What a great start. I mean, what a great story of your teen years and that support system that you had. And so let's talk a little bit about your career here in Santa Cruz. I mean, I know that you got your law degree and did lots of other things, but you just passed an incredible housing measure across Santa Cruz County. Why don't you talk a little bit about how long you've had that job and why housing is so important to you? You may have heard Tyler talking about housing in Monterey County and how important that is, but it'd be great to hear from your perspective and the housing work we're doing across Santa Cruz County.
Mm-hmm. Yes. A great success on Measure C, and that was a City of Santa Cruz measure.
Right.
It wasn't countywide because it's really challenging to win a countywide campaign with the way the system is designed right now. But I was so incredibly grateful that after a 2.5-year process and the support of the community that measure passed, because we have to, again, it's in my DNA, we have to support our community. It doesn't matter if it's our youth, it's our seniors, it's our students, it's the laborers, our farm workers. We have to help people. That's how I was raised.
Right.
You know, everyone is one paycheck away from, could being unhoused, as the gentleman shared earlier. I remember early on growing up, my father worked at General Motors for 41 years. And I remember we would get on the subway and go to Macy's in Manhattan, and he'd buy these clothes. And I'm like, Daddy, well, those are not going to fit us. And he says, well, they're not for you. And he would take us out, and we'd go around the corner, and they were clothes for the people living in the cardboard boxes under the heat.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I learned early on, and I'll never forget Daddy telling us, and my dad died a long time ago, never judge anyone because you don't know how they got there. And I remember, for the grace of God, when I moved here to Santa Cruz, because I was still in love, right? And then that didn't work, and I watched my 401k dwindle. There, for the grace of God, I remember counting nickels and pennies and having to choose between, do I eat today or do I pay my landlord?
Could you repeat that line your dad used one more time?
That to never judge people in the cardboard boxes. You don't know how they got there.
Wow.
Because, and it reminded me of when I moved to Santa Cruz. And a few months in, the relationship didn't work. I'm watching my 401k dwindle just to pay these outrageous rents here.
Yeah.
And before you know it, I'm counting nickels. And I'm like, oh, my God, asking my landlord if she could wait 2 weeks just so I could get something to eat.
Yeah.
Right? And so, those experiences growing up it shaped me in not judging, because there for the grace of God go I.
Right.
But everybody, your home is your sanctuary. You got to have that safe space to go to.
Right.
That woman Edith I told you about, who was my first girlfriend.
Right.
Of showing up in Santa Cruz several years later, and it showed up as a mental illness, and she died homeless. And till this day, I have a lot of sadness in my heart, because that should not have happened.
Yeah.
Right? So housing is a human right. And our colleague who just spoke is correct. It's a housing shortage, because for decades, nobody wanted to build anything.
Yeah.
I remember growing up in the Bronx, and they were going to be building, additional housing next door to our project, and how excited we were that we were going to get new neighbors and new friends. Right? We welcomed it. Up on the 11th story of a 14-story building.
Wow.
My whole entire life. My mother lived in that same building 70 years.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Because it was about community. It wasn't about the buildings. It wasn't about the height. It was about the community, the kids laughing. We grew up. My sisters grew up. Her kids grew up there. Now their kids are growing up there. Those are the things I bring to the table here in Santa Cruz County when it comes to housing.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the work you do with housing and what is it important? What parts of that are important for everybody to know about?
Get out of your own way and let us build.
Oh.
We can't keep saying that our kids can't live here, our grandkids can't live here, this person can't live here, that person can't live here, if you also are saying don't build. You can't. It doesn't work that way. We advocate for housing. It's not just we're just going to go stand in front of city council and say you have to approve this project. It's so much more than that. It's working with developers, making sure that they're in alignment and in integrity about building housing so that families can live here. Right? It's about the community welcoming places and spaces for homes to get built so that they can have additional, community members. I'm not going to lie. It's been really challenging here in this community to build, and I've never seen anything like that because my upbringing wasn't like that. We just welcomed and watched as how homes were built for people in our community, and not just quote unquote big tall buildings. Beautiful, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom houses was built.
Right.
And so, I like to gently remind people, to shift that narrative of why things are not working into why they will work and why other people's families, including their own, can live here. But if you don't have the housing to build, of course people can't stay.
So that's the same thing that Tyler said earlier, and it sounds like you're echoing that we've got to continue to build spaces for people to live in.
That's right. We have to.
Yeah. Otherwise, we all get priced out of the market, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Well, sounds so. It's so great to know that you're in charge or helping to support that direction. Yeah. I know that across Santa Cruz County, that's a tough conversation for a lot of people, but it's great we're having that conversation. I want to shift to your role in the NAACP and make sure we have a little bit of time talking about the Martin Luther King Day event a week from tomorrow. So tell us a little bit about your involvement with that and what people should plan on doing a week from Monday.
Showing up and showing out. and when I mean showing up, marching together, hand in hand, arm in arm, with the music filling our soul is great, beautiful, wonderful. But what I'm going to ask people to do is to continue to show up at the job, in the boardrooms, in the meetings, whatever table they're sitting at, we need their voices. As an African-American woman, gay woman in this community, it's hard at times, Rob.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I sit in rooms and my heart is saying, hey, can you speak up for me? Hey, can you speak up for me? Right? Hey, do you have my back? The work can't start and stop at marches. They have to continue no matter where you go. You see something that's not right, say something, as long as it's safe.
Right.
You got to say something. We need to know that you got our back, front, and our sides.
Yeah.
We need to know that.
That's the root of, I will just call it social justice is showing up. The importance of showing up. For people to show up next week, what time do things start and where are we gathering?
We're going to gather right outside of City Hall in the Black Lives Matter mural. We're going to start there this year.
Okay.
And then we're going to walk down to Pacific Avenue and turn around and come back, and then we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate outside. We're not going to go into the Civic this year. We notice, half the crowd doesn't make it inside, and I get it. People are just so excited to see each other.
Right.
They're being blessed by the music and each other's presence. I think it's so, but the world is heavy.
Yeah.
We know that. And we got to find times to be with each other.
Yeah,
right?
you're so right with that. And I just wanted to comment about how you're so great at helping to remind us that communities where it's at. And certainly a week from tomorrow is a great time for people to show that.
Yes. Show each other how you love each other. I see you. How's things going? How can I support you? We have to tap into the joy along with the pain.
Yeah.
It can't all be pain. As an African-American woman, right, growing up in New York, living in Santa Cruz, California now, they're two different worlds for me. I've experienced things in this community that I've never experienced in New York. I'm not going to sit here and say it's been easy because it hasn't. And I got to tap into that joy, otherwise it'll take you down.
Yeah.
And what that's like for me, I have people in my life who I love and who love me and who respect me and who I know will have my back. But we have to we have to tap, as I think about MLK, being there, just what would she say? Again, regardless of the appearance of what's going on, we still have each other and our dignity, and let's lean into that.
Absolutely. So that's the key thing is to show up a week from Sunday for Martin Luther King Day. Most students have that day off. So students who are out there, come on down to downtown Santa Cruz. We hope to see all of you there. There were lots of people out at the protests on Ocean Street earlier today. So hopefully all those people show up to there because, that's what we do across Santa Cruz County is we show up for each other. And I remind people of that, and we all have to remind each other that that's what we do for each other in Santa Cruz and Santa Cruz County. So I will be there for sure, and we'll have a little Santa Cruz Pride contingent there, and I know lots of churches are planning on being there as well. So hopefully we'll see everybody else there. Is there a good place for people to get information about that?
Yeah, they can go to the NAACP website. Yeah, and all the information, the start time, what we're going to do afterwards, and all that is up.
Wonderful. So we look forward to all being there together. Elaine, again, I want to thank you for being here today, sharing all that you do, and we certainly appreciate your presence in our community, and I look forward to seeing you at the march next week.
Oh, Rob, it was a pleasure talking to you always, and thank you for all the work that you do in our community.
Absolutely. It's all of us together. So thanks again, Elaine. We'll see you soon. Take care. So as we conclude our Pride Perspectives radio show, we always conclude with a couple of quotes, and I found some quotes from Bayard Rustin. Rustin said, "There are three ways in which one can deal with injustice. A, one can accept it without protest. B, one can seek to avoid it. Or C, one can resist the injustice nonviolently. To accept it is to perpetuate it." Then he said, "People will never fight for your freedom if you have not given evidence that you are prepared to fight for it yourself." So as Elaine mentioned, as Tyler mentioned, I invite you to show up a week from Monday for the MLK Walk for the Dream on Monday, January 19th at 10 o'clock in downtown Santa Cruz. Lots of contingents. Just come on down and join a group. Santa Cruz Pride will be there with other groups as well. In February 26th, there will be an Elevate Business event held at Hotel Paradox, which is to help businesses understand why being inclusive across our community is so important. And then finally in March, on March 19th, will be the annual Warriors Pride Night on Thursday, March 19th. You can find all this information on our website at santacruzpride.org, including the MLK Walk for the Dream on Monday, January 19th. So we look forward to seeing you out in the community at those events in the same way that we show up for each other. Again, find that information on our website, santacruzpride.org. Thanks again for listening to Pride Perspectives, conversations and stories to celebrate the LGBTQ plus culture and history across Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.